Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of
It's All Nonsense.
Nonsense. My name is Marc and Justin Kadish. The gentleman that is sitting in between us, obviously, is not either of us. He is...
This is the one, guys. This is the one we said was coming.
He is the mayor of Cop Town. He is what I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
He is a great friend and mentor and a fun guy, and he actually gives a shit about people, which is, nice in this.
You wouldn't know it by some of the way he comes off to certain people, but he's really a good dude.
He can be kind of, grouchy at times. Kind of reminds me of my father in that way.
Just like any old Irishman.
He's got a heart of gold behind the paisan exterior. His name is Tom McDonald.
Yay!
Say hi. Say hi.
Thank you.
That's it.
He's a wonderful gentleman who I really got to know quite a bit through our time in Spring Township Rotary. And a lot of the stories that he passed on to me, I thought were a load of crap. I was like, this cannot be possibly true. And the more I heard, it's like, oh my God, these stories are actually real, which makes me feel really sad at how boring my life has actually been. 49 years.
We've got nothing compared to this guy.
So it's a good story episode, I should say.
Yes.
We're really going to sort of dig deep a little bit, get to know him a lot better. Just about him, his growing up, about his days on the NYPD, and sort of what he's transitioned to now with how he gives back to veterans in our community, and how he gives back through our Spring Township Rotary. So I thought it would be a good way to sort of just get to know him a little bit better. And this may go 2 episodes.
Probably.
And, there may be foul language dropped occasionally in stories. So just know that going into it.
Get the fuck out.
Hey, we made it past 10 seconds. We did, and we forgot to tell him that. We legit tried to forgot to tell him.
What was the plus minus on it?
Yeah.
It was, I was going for 30 seconds. The nice thing is a lot of people listen to us in their cars. So there's nothing more I like to do than hear really fun, interesting stories as I'm stuck in traffic,
right?
Trying to contemplate my life and
listening to your own podcast.
I think where I kind of want to where I kind of want to start this is, Tom, where were you born?
Good old Brooklyn, New York.
Ooh,
okay, boy. So Brooklyn, New York, and may I ask, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, is it one of those things where you always want to be a cop or you want to be a mobster? Wow. Is that kind of were you one or the other?
I could have been both. Could have been both because there are people that just straddle that line, and you know what? There's God. If I can start the one story off, right? So 16 years old, my grandfather passes away. Go to his funeral, and there's mob guys at the funeral, right?
Right.
And Mr. DJ Bardino, who ran the neighborhood, was one of those guys that my grandfather was aligned with, and I know him since I'm a little boy, right?
Right.
He approaches me and, hey, Tom, you ever need a job, give me a call. And at that point, I'm 16 years old. One of the people I really looked up to in life was my friend John Calvanico, and I emulated him, for lack of better terms. Let's call him my cousin. Okay? So John was a New York City cop. He taught me how to respect people, how to address people, and from him I learned a lot in life. And with that, I wanted to emulate him and be a cop. Right? So the first time you're legally allowed to apply and take a test for the NYPD is 16 years old.
Really?
Wow, yeah. That's young.
Right?
Wow.
I registered, took the test, got a really good score on it, got called at 17. I had to defer it till 19 when they could actually start doing background investigations.
Okay.
And by 20, I was qualified to be in the police department. So that's
nice. Okay.
Jeez.
So that being said, I had told Mr. DJ Bardino that I think I'm going to be a New York City cop, and then with that, you get the old, the good boy, you do that. Again, growing up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, heavily Italian, heavily Jewish, heavily Irish. You know? But, back then, city of New York was very, very segregated. And talking about, you had Bensonhurst that was primarily white, Italian, Jewish, Irish.
Tom, I don't want to interrupt you. You got to talk in the mic, bud.
All right.
There we are. Thank you, bud.
Sorry. No problem. So with that being said, you had places like Crown Heights that were very black and very heavily Jewish. Borough Park was heavily Jewish. Coney Island was heavily black. Brownsville, heavily black. So people were segregated. There was no intermingle.
That sounds like a proper named town, Brownsville, for certain people.
Yeah. So, but growing up and having those things that were put in place for busing kids into the school district, right? It forced you to have kids and friends that were of different color, different nature. And I grew up around really good people, all colors, all races.
Yeah,
doesn't matter, right? But I knew at 3:00 in the morning I shouldn't be in Brownsville, right? Just you need to stay out of there, right?
Right.
And we were talking about a time when Jesse Jackson was prominent, Al Sharpton was prominent. The area I lived in, Bensonhurst, a couple of Italian kids stabbed a black kid named Yusef Hawkins, right? And there were protests in my neighborhood daily, right? So, but because of John, I realized that you do the right thing, you'll always get good returns. So I've always done the right thing. And my friend Mario lived around the corner from me, he did sell cocaine, but he used a hell of a lot more than what he was selling. And guess what? He was killed for it.
I was going to say, isn't that the first rule of drug dealing? Don't sample your own product.
Yeah, well, what was Scarface?
Right.
Right? That comes right at Scarface.
Right.
Yeah.
But the sad thing about it, the kid that killed Mario was one of his friends. Right? So the kid that killed him was killed by Mario's dad when he came out of a candy store, got in his car, they drove up next to him and blew his head off with a shotgun. All right?
Jeez.
So, was there crime? Yeah, there was crime. There was a lot of this intermingling, good guy, bad guy, wannabe gangster shit.
Yeah. So did that really sort of seed even more about what you wanted to do as a cop? You know what I mean? Did that sort of motivate you more to actually...
John was my driving factor to be a cop. I lived for the adrenaline, the chases, getting into a shootout, chasing bad guys in stolen cars,
Yeah.
That was my thing, and I really, really loved it, and I made it happen, and I worked in a very depressed neighborhood of Flatbush, a lot of high crime. We would turn out at 11:30 at night, be back in the station house by 11:45 with a gun collar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so... Me and my old partner is now a chief. He's the chief of Brooklyn South.
Jeez.
So he's still working, still loving it. Where a normal cop, a sensible cop does his 20 years and gets out and takes his pension and goes out.
Yeah.
He's there 35 plus years.
Oh my God. Wow.
So while you can still walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. But he lives for it. But he's a politician at this point. He's not doing the patrol.
Sure. Now, what year did you retire from NYPD?
Get this, as life would have it, 2001.
Oh, geez.
Before or after September 11th?
9 months before September 11th.
9 months before September 11th.
Yep. You had something on your shoulders there. Holy smokes.
So, I don't know if you could see it on the camera. I don't know if you can, but I wear this blue band, and this is in regards to my friend Jimmy Schiavone. Jimmy Schiavone and I went to the police academy at the same time. We graduated at the same time. We wound up in the same training units. We wound up at the same precinct. We did midnights together. We're married the same year. Our children are exactly the same. Girl, boy, girl, same year, same. We're identical. I love Jimmy and I miss Jimmy. Him and I were avid Yankee fans. And he loved hockey, although he was an Islanders fan. I was a Rangers fan.
No one's perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, and you guys probably hate my guts for being a Rangers fan.
I do, but I've come to grips with it.
I'm more on the Yankees versus Phillies side of things. I was stuck in an airport in Newark, New Jersey in 2009 during the World Series with a bunch of freaking Yankees fans coming back from my honeymoon. and I was in this airport for like 6 hours because the president decided to fly in earlier. So yeah, I have no love for the Yankees at all.
So tell you what, growing up in New York, right, and this goes back to being a young child, right? 1969, who wins the World Series?
Mets.
The Mets, right? My father was a Mets fan. My grandfather on my mother's side, right, diehard Yankees fan since the 20s.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah.
So I think it was a little FU to my grandfather. My father put
Sounds
me
about right.
in a Mets jacket, right? Now, I'm 1, maybe 2 years old at best, right? From what I was told and understand is that he ripped that jacket off my back, went to the local Corvettes. Now, Corvettes would be like the equivalent of, let's say, Boscov's.
You like the department store, yeah.
Got it.
And got me a Yankee jacket, and I was a Yankee fan since.
Jeez. So, looking back
Call that programming.
Yeah.
100%.
So, looking back on it, when you retired in 2001 and September 11th happened, did you have that urge to jump right back in and go back up there? Or what was your sort of thought
That
process?
morning, I dropped the kids off at school, and I think we had just come back from Disney. I had a bunch of pictures that I needed to get developed, so I was bringing them to the local Genovese drugstore, right?
Wait a minute. Genovese drugstore?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay.
So,
That name perked my ears.
so with that being said, I'm listening to Howard Stern, and Howard wasn't as big a libtard as he is today. He was actually fun then.
Yeah, you got that right. Oh my God.
So he announces over the radio that a plane just hit the World Trade Center, and in my mind, I'm thinking Piper Cub. I
Sure.
could not fathom at all it was a jetliner. Right? I go back home. My wife is home. I put the TV on, and I'm watching as the second plane hits the. Now, honestly, I wasn't going back.
No.
It wasn't fear. I'm not afraid of anything. At that point, the job had retired me because I had 3 different surgeries on my left arm. And I don't think I would have been very helpful at that point.
I got you. I mean, that was obviously that's one of those things. Looking back on it, where everybody knows where they were when it happened.
Yeah.
You know, and it. Looking back on it, it's still to this day, at least for me, it's just very surreal, because it's like there's no way this is actually happening right now. You know what I mean?
I do.
It was like this is like watching a movie. You know what I mean? This cannot actually be happening. And you still, you know, remember, it's like you try to call relatives, get hold of relatives. You know, my Aunt Pat, who was chief operating room nurse at Sloan Kettering at the time, and no one could get hold of her. Nobody. Because all phone lines are down, cell phone lines are everything was down, you know. And it wasn't until like a day later, 2 days later, where you know they could reach out and get hold. But I think just that fact alone for millions of people is just not knowing,
Right.
You know, because I think not knowing is a lot worse.
That was the worst.
Was just a lot worse than actually knowing. Is your loved one okay?
Well,
You know what I mean?
My mom worked on Thomas Street, which is just a couple of blocks away from there. And she worked in
really?
the city of New York. And trying to get a hold of her was almost impossible.
Yeah.
For hours on end. She had to, there was no more trains running. She lived in Brooklyn. So she had to walk over the Brooklyn Bridge to get home.
Did she really?
And then she finally wound up getting a bus the rest of the way. But there was no service at all in and or out of Manhattan.
So I mean, just the stories that come from that alone are absolutely amazing. I mean, and there's a lot of people know I'm a documentary whore. I ingest them like water. And the best documentary I've ever seen on 9/11 is also the most depressing thing I've ever seen.
Can't
Which
watch
is there was actually a French documentary crew
Yes.
that was doing a documentary on what it's like to be a rookie firefighter
Oh,
for the
Jesus.
NYPD.
Ugh.
You know which one?
100%. And you
Yeah.
remember they're in the is it the atrium? They were in the atrium, and
Yeah.
you're hearing thuds.
You hear those are the people.
Those are the people jumping.
Sure. It's listen, it's one of those things where you want to turn it off, but you can't. Like for me, it's like I had to watch this, because I don't know why. But it's one of those things where I had to see, firsthand kind of like this is as close as I'm going to get to kind of at least trying to grasp or understand what these people went through.
I had a similar, to your point of like watching and like not wanting to watch, but why are you watching this? Like when I was in the high school at the time that happened. And shortly thereafter, a guy I used to go to the gym with, he was an IT guy and he was a contractor for the Army. And he went over to overseas after 9/11 once we went to war. And he ended up getting captured and beheaded. And they recorded it.
Ouch.
And people were like, I had to watch it because I knew the guy. And I'm like, this was one of the nicest, most down to earth, smart dudes. I mean, he was like 5'5" and he was a powerhouse in the gym and he was super smart. And he ended up getting freaking beheaded by Al Qaeda, and they recorded it, and it got released. And I felt like I owed it to him to watch it. Like somebody like had to witness him give everything, and he wasn't even enlisted. Like he was a contractor,
A private contractor.
So no, I completely understand what you're saying. Like you don't want to watch it, but it's like you almost owe it to the people to respect, like give them the respect of them, sacrifice. So
I mean,
Do you guys know when you pass away and they're going to cremate you? Do you know what temperature that is they use?
I do, just 'cause my mom was cremated. So
It's about 800 degrees.
Yeah.
Right. So the guy I told you about earlier, my old partner, who's now a chief, right?
yeah,
He was stationed down at Ground Zero. He's the lieutenant in charge of the entire pit, right? And he was giving tours to VIPs that wanted to see and pay respects, right? So his birthday is October 30th, right? So I went down to have dinner with him. Now we're talking almost a full month and a half,
sure.
right? Afterwards, core temperature was still 1700 degrees.
oh my God,
Really?
Core temperature.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus.
That is absolutely.
But you know what? Exactly like you said before, you have memories of exactly where you were when that happened.
Yep. I was
One of the most shittiest memories I have is, and she's it. She's the person that identifies as 9/11, right? The black woman covered in white soot.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
And, that is the image that I just remember and keep going back to. She's since passed. She died of 9/11 cancer.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the bad thing about the 9/11 tragedy is, although you did have 2,000 plus people killed that day, it's still killing people today with cancers. My
Sure.
friends are dying every day from cancers.
That's the part that a lot of people don't even realize and really don't talk about is the after effects of the people that actually went down there to help.
Oh my God!
And
how about Christy Todd Whitman?
yeah,
The health czar of the
Yeah.
U.S. at the point. The air quality down here is fine.
former governor
Get the fuck out of
Jersey.
Here.
Yeah.
It's like,
But-
I was a volunteer firefighter, like for several years, and we ended up losing. Very long story short, we lost a guy to pancreatic cancer. He had been a firefighter since he was 16 years old. Did a lot of building stuff before air packs were like. You had to get into a building right away. You went into the building. You didn't wait to pack up or do any of that sort of stuff. You just went in. So, his cancer, they kind of thought was led back to like all his years of exposure to carcinogens and all that sort of stuff. So kind of when Jon Stewart went on a tirade and was like, how dare you guys not fund this bill and all that sort of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, my fire department, we lost several people within a couple years of each other to various different issues. And that was like one of those things like, how are you going to turn away firefighters that gave their lives, came down with all these sicknesses, died, giving everything? And thank God Jon Stewart put that out there. And I was not a big Jon Stewart fan back in the day.
Neither am I. And I met him at Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah.
He was another big advocate for that too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's a huge first responder, diehard New York person. Like it was so good to see that he was advocating for that stuff. And finally they got it passed to where, you know, they were compensated. But that was the whole reason I got my first tattoo. I've got a Maltese Cross 343 on my back. That was my very first tattoo because I had nothing but respect for those guys that went into, you know, to do that job.
I have a tattoo on my left arm, and I got it after I got my kidney transplant. And it says, if I'm not, wait a minute, what does it say? If I'm not dead, I'm not finished. It's a skull with a blue line through it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually drawn by my friend who was on... Louis was a good guy. He died of 9/11 cancer. 76 rounds of chemo.
76.
76, and he was a big advocate. He testified in front of Congress, and it's called the Zadroga bill, right?
Okay.
And he was a big advocate of it. And, you know, part of me getting that tattoo had something to do with getting the kidney transplant and living his words.
Sure.
If I'm not dead, I'm not finished.
Right.
So he's a big motivator.
That's, I mean, for me, I'm very much to the fact that there is, I think, more common ground than uncommon ground, as I like to say, between people, no matter what you think and what your belief system is.
Right.
And the proof is, you know, Jon Stewart, you know, is the fact that, like, he's polarizing in a few different directions, but for a lot of people. But the thing is, he wants the same thing that every other decent person wants for these people.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you ever watched his speech to the joint session, if that doesn't bring a tear to your eye,
that's exactly,
nothing will.
Yep.
You know, I mean, that dude,
he went off.
He gives a shit, you know, and about these people. And it's, you know, one of those things was like, you know what, you know, it's a good way to sort of test the theories. Like, you know what, we are more alike than we are different in what, you know, and what we want and how people need to be treated. And, you know, he wasn't asking anything crazy.
No.
You know what I mean? He was just looking for, you know, be sensible.
Yeah. What's right is right.
Be decent.
Do the right thing. Yeah. Be sensible. You know, these people laid their life on the line. This is the absolute minimum of what we could do. Well, and it's not that, you know.
And if you think about, you know, if you fast forward 20 plus years to where we're at right now, and the current administration finding all the wasteful spending that has been going on for decades, I mean, their ultimate thing was, we can't afford to, you know, do this for all these people, all these families. It's too much money. But now we're finding, like, where some of this money was really going. That makes it even more poignant that something like that was held up with a bunch of red tape.
Sure.
Now you see where stuff, you know, is, you know, and who knows how far it goes back.
What I wonder, right, with all this labeling of, oh, we're going to give this country so many $1 million for, you know, gay pride parade or whatever they were giving. I don't care if you give. But to me, it doesn't sound like we were giving that country that money for that. That is CIA money. Some other purpose.
That's washed money. That's exactly right.
This is what it's coded for, but we're really using it to bomb the hell out of somebody else.
Well, was it 10, 15 years ago, they were saying about, was it $20,000 for a toilet seat on an airplane or some shit like that? Like, it's like, really? So
let me ask you something. So when you were active in the NYPD, did you have to live in the borough where you worked, or was it open to?
There was. You could live in New York City. You could live. It was called WARP, and WARP stood for Westchester, Orange, Rockland, Putnam.
Okay,
that's as far north as you can go above New York City.
Okay,
and as far east as Suffolk County.
Okay. So there was an area, the zone you had to. Okay.
You couldn't live in Jersey. You couldn't live outside the
Well,
state.
they're probably doing you a favor.
Exactly. Right? But
I don't live in Newark.
just think about it. How far do you want to travel down to New York City? Because you'd have to work in the Bronx to make it sensible. Could you imagine living in Putnam County and traveling down to Staten Island?
Yeah. That wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, when you were going full force on the force, was there ever a time when you were like, this is exactly kind of how I pictured this job, or was there way more about what you did that you didn't realize until you were already in it for a little while?
No, it was everything I thought it was.
Was it?
Yeah, everything. I lived, breathed it, loved every second of it. And when they finally did retire, and it was a realization for me that, what am I going to do? Who am I? I lost my identity. So for a couple of years, I played around with who am I.
Sure.
I also play around with the fact that I have 9/11 guilt. Right? I wasn't there to be with my brothers. I should have been on the pile with them. I should have been. But at that point too, then I'm at a point where I'm dying from cancer, right?
Yeah.
Which my friend Jimmy lived his life to the fullest, and his thing was, and I love him for it, was it is what it is. Mm-hmm. You can't change it. You just got to deal with it, and you got to move.
Yeah.
Right. It is what it is. And I love that motto.
It's I think it's one of those things. I think the fact of the matter is that a lot of these people that got 9/11 cancer through the years handled it kind of like they handled anything else from being a cop and a firefighter, which is...
I would say yes. I would say absolutely yes.
Yeah.
And, one of my best friends in the whole world, and I hope he sees this, his name is Frank Thomas. I talk to him 3 times a day. I love him like he's my brother. Mm-hmm. And he's here today, and he's doing well because he followed the protocols, right? Mm. He took it head on, and he did what he had to do, right?
Yeah.
I also worked with a guy named Tony, and I went to go visit him in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
Tony knew he had cancer, chose not to do chemo, and he died on his own terms, and I respect that too.
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
Sure. I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Is with how you handle things, whether you're a cop or a firefighter or just anyone that is dealing with that disease, is how do you want to handle it?
Yeah.
How do you want to deal with it? You know what I mean? Like my personal experience, I've had, multiple family members with cancer. My mom passed away in 2005. And looking back on it, I was like, I was not understanding her thought process, because she was very much, when she got diagnosed, and she fought it. She did the chemo, she did the treatments, all the different therapies, things like that. But when she got to the point where she's like, I'm
done.
I'm tired.
Done.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to, do the treatment that's going to just make me feel like crap.
It's exhausting.
And it's right. So once it got to that point, she was like, I'm good. You know what I mean? I was not a happy camper, but looking back on it, it's like, I get it. You know what I mean? It's like you get to the, I think that's what comes with age, unfortunately, is the wisdom that goes along with it sometimes is the juice worth the squeeze? You know what I mean?
that happened to Jimmy. You've seen the tattoo, Tom. I don't think you've seen it. A good friend of mine, Tracy, designed this ribbon for Jimmy that was the one that died of pancreatic cancer in our firehouse. I was with him making Christmas breakfast for an event at our firehouse when he said he wasn't feeling well and, all this sort of stuff. And he had some personal things going on that he thought were stress related or whatever to the situation. I'm like, man, that doesn't sound right. So not even a month later, he goes to an oncologist and gets tested, and he's got stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Mm-hmm. And this dude was 6 foot, 210, 215. He was the fire captain for 15, 20 years. He was in the fire department, like I said, he's 18, 20 years old, something like that. And he was like, I'm going to battle it. I'm going to fuck it up. I'm going to fight this thing. We're going to win it. 6 months. Mm-hmm. And he
is the worst.
He wasted away from this tall, strapping, farm, strong type guy to being in a wheelchair, looking as white as some of our lighting in here. And he could barely talk. He couldn't walk, all this stuff, because not only the chemo, but the disease itself just ran its course. And he finally was like, we raised 5 figures for him, for his fund, essentially. And it went from a, I don't even want to call it a death fund, but to a bucket list fund. We'll call it that.
Sure.
So he was able to go on a hot air balloon ride with his daughter. He went to a Flyers game with his daughter. He was able to do some other things, like all this sort of stuff. But yeah, it was 6 months and it was done and he was gone. So it was just, he was like, when he got to like month 4 or 5, he's like, it's not working. I'm going out on my own.
Yeah.
Give me the drugs, make myself comfortable.
At least make me comfortable. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gone. And it was one of the most heartbreaking funerals. Unfortunately, even at 41, I've been to a lot of funerals, which I'm sure, you have too. That was one of the most gruesome, emotional funerals I had been to, and I've lost relatives, I lost friends. I'm going to go to a different subject. So I'm going to steal the spotlight for a second.
Oh, crap.
So since we've been going down this road of depressiveness and cancer and all this bullshit, I think it's time to get nonsensical.
Okay.
So Tom,
go on.
We've heard some of your stories firsthand. I'm hoping you can recall some good ones for us, and we would appreciate you not holding back and being as Tom McDonald as possible telling these stories, because that's what people want to listen to. Right. We want the nonsense. So give us some of the best stuff you've seen, heard. We want people to kind of lose it over this. So we want to pick up the spirit a little bit.
All right, I got this one. This one is probably by far one of my best.
All right, just make sure you're in the mic. That's all.
In the mic. Remix. All right, so 92, 93, somewhere in there. I'm working Flatbush, Brooklyn. We're down in the lower end of the precinct, which is very heavily Jewish.
Were you patrol?
Patrol.
Okay.
We're doing midnight patrol, and we get a radio run of a dispute in progress. Right. So, don't know what kind of dispute it is. Is it a family dispute? Is it just a fight? What is it? We don't know. So, it's on the 6th floor of an apartment building. We get up there, and protocol as a police officer is you're going to go up. You don't rap on the door real fast. You want to listen, try and get some intel before you hit the door.
Right.
And we're listening, and it sounds like an all-out brawl. It sounds like just a big-ass brawl going on in there, right? We rap on the door, use my mag light because it's heavy.
Yeah.
Right? It comes with authority, right? And big 6'10" black guy, okay? Balls ass naked, okay? Johnson down to his ankles, okay? And he's high as fuck, okay? Yo, baby. What's up, baby? What's going on? I don't know. You tell me. What do you got going? Sounds like there's a fight. There ain't no fight, baby. We're just having a good time. Okay, can we come in? Yeah, come on in. You get into the apartment. Garbage everywhere. It looks like a Bugs Bunny cartoon with the, picture frame over the head broken, that sort of shit.
Oh, my gosh.
Dude, what's going on here? Nothing, baby. We're just having a good time. And then all of a sudden, second black guy, balls ass naked. Johnson down to his ankles. And he's got a drink in his hand. Yo, baby, what's up? I don't know. You tell me. What's happening? We got to call that there's a fight in here. With that, a tiny, and I'm talking maybe midget-sized Iranian guy comes out of the back bedroom, balls ass naked, right? Officer, you got to help me. You got to help me. What's going on? Well, when I came here, I would said I suck his dick. But I'm not sucking his dick. What? Oh, yeah, I want to leave. They won't let me leave. Dude, go get dressed. All right? Go into the back bedroom. White guy, fully clothed, with a camera. Dude, what's your story here? I'm just filming. You live here? No, get the fuck out of here. Right? The little Iranian guy gets dressed. We're ready to go. We're leaving, right? Got to get his name and shit. We're taking the elevator down. He's talking to us in gibberish. He's like all out of it, right? We get to the front door. He's gone. million miles an hour. He's just running away. No idea where he went.
Oh my gosh.
Gone. And that's probably one of my favorite stories.
Oh my
They
god.
were shooting a porno in the guy's house.
Oh my gosh.
That's one of my favorites.
Would you say that your job was to the point where a story like that was actually kind of normal for like a Tuesday?
Oh my god! Do you remember? do you remember the commercial in the was it late '80s, early '90s, with the police officer taking a report that someone had robbed this woman's brand new Honda and left the old Honda in its place?
Yeah.
And the guy goes, "You just can't make this shit up. You can't on a day-to-day basis." There was, hey, how do you get a cop to your house the fastest way?
Nah.
Someone being killed, a homicide,
Yeah,
gunshots. No, just tell 911 there's a naked woman. You'll get every cop in the borough to be there, right? So there was a building. It was on Crook Avenue in Flatbush. It was notorious. It's a crack house. They were putting it in the vials. They were creating it there, and they made the girls get naked so they couldn't steal shit.
Okay.
And they had enough of this crackhead. They threw her out the door naked, and she's outside naked. We got the call. The call came in at like 7:30, almost towards our end of shift. Every guy on duty didn't care about going home that day. They just got there as quick as they could. And let me tell you, it wasn't worth the trip. Skinny
Who would
ass
have
little.
I was going to say, who thought a crackhead would have been worth the trip?
She was a chicken head.
So was this kind of during or after kind of the crack epidemic in New York City?
So the years I became a cop, Dinkins was mayor.
Okay.
So crime was probably at its highest. Morale in the city was poor. It was
Is that
just
when
horrible.
cops were actually riding subway trains and stuff like that?
Yep. So with that, there's a picture floating around somewhere out there on the Daily News that they silhouetted. All the PBA guys stormed City Hall in support of Rudy Giuliani, right? So I'm on that picture. I'm in it.
Are you really?
Pick myself out in it. I'm in that picture, right? And so were all my other brothers from the 7-0 that went down that day, right? So we backed him, and he said, "I'll take care of you guys." And then we got big fat zeros in our contract while giving himself a 28% raise.
Oh,
right.
There you go.
28% raise.
28% raise. Right?
That must be nice.
So with that, right, the running joke afterwards now was that Rudy Giuliani cleaned up the city, which I endorsed, right? I spent most of my life in my 20s cleaning up New York City, right? Bloomberg kept it up, and then de Blasio fucked it up.
Right.
Yeah, sounds about right.
But, all the guys that I worked with that, back in the 80s, 90s, that did all the work to make that the number one safest city in the world, it's gone to shit. It means nothing now.
Yeah. How do you think it's different from back then? Is it?
I'll tell you.
Is it leadership down?
This.
Oh, cell phones.
The general public with their phones thinking
Yeah.
they're high and mighty will film every transaction with a cop, and if you do something the wrong way, a cop now they've also made moves that the city will not indemnify you.
Okay.
So if the city does not indemnify you, that means any Joe Schmo can sue you and take your house. Before you were indemnified no matter what you did.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I thought that was part of being a cop. Like until
So
everything's all
what's the incentive?
Yeah.
I could possibly go to jail, lose my house, and for what?
right.
Yeah. So it makes it harder to do the job, basically.
I will tell you from pure experience, and people are going to disagree with me, right? And it would be just like when the mob ran Reading, right? It was safe, right? When cops had the way to rule the way they had to rule, heavy-handedly, people stayed in line. Because, hey, if he cracked my skull open now, the next cop might crack my skull open. And I don't want that again, right?
Well, that's kind of one of those just weird situations where organizations that you don't think work together. The prime example is World War II. The mob protected the ports in New York City.
Right.
It was known, like, and there was a line of, obviously it was in the mob's best interest, but it was also
In the city's best
best
And the
interest
country.
and the country's best interest. stuff like that makes for weird bedfellows.
Well, you
quite
brought it
honestly,
up, right? You brought this up, right? So the CIA, along with the mob, conspired to get rid of Cuba, right? Right, Fidel Castro. They were going to hit Fidel Castro, right?
yeah.
So
It's just it's
and now all the back stuff that we know about JFK and what
yeah.
the mob's involvement was with that, so there's a lot.
That may be coming out soon too.
Yes. Well, we'll see today, right?
Yeah, next day or two. Supposedly Epstein stuff is
Let's
coming out
see it.
today.
I want to see that.
I do too.
I don't care who's on that list.
Oh, just take them all out. Please take them all out. Take them all. Anybody that does child trafficking, does anything with kids, like,
Yeah.
we all have kids here, 3 kids, 2 kids, 4 kids.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you go down that road. You deserve all the hell you're going to catch, and I'll leave it as nicely as possible as that.
So going back, and what's changed? And I told you the
Yeah.
cell phone shit, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everybody having this power, information on at their side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s and 50s, 60s, back then, we didn't know shit. We were in the dark, right?
Yeah.
What the government did was totally unknown.
Yeah.
Right. But now everyone has the freedom to
Sure.
film you and keep you in check.
Yeah. I mean, that's gotta in a big way gotta make just that job so much harder. Like, the job itself is an insanely hard job, even when it's functioning properly and how it should function. But when you throw in things like that, it just I can't fathom. I'll be perfectly honest. I can't fathom doing that job. You know what I mean? It's just now, like, because it just seems like a lose-lose situation a lot of times that police officers get themselves in.
I think, and when body cams first came out, I was very hesitant about that. I really thought there was going to be a lot of kickback, but I think body cams have really actually helped a lot of law enforcement be able to justify and prove why they did what they did, because all this, to your point, everybody's coming out with phones and recording shit and all that sort of stuff, and the cops had nothing to go on.
Right.
So now if I've got a camera facing out while you've got a camera facing in, well, now it's just pure justice. Who was right? Who was wrong? What happened? Right. So I think that actually helps a lot of cops, is now the fact that they're like, look, you're being recorded, just so you know. You can record me, but it's going both ways here. So
You see how it failed for the public?
Yeah,
Like
it's a backfire.
It was a total backfire.
Yeah, they wanted it, and they want it because they want to say all these cops are dirty and all this, and all it proved was majority of cops were actually right and justified in the way they're handling situations.
I'm going to tell you a quick story, right? So we had Prospect Park as part of our territory to do patrolling, right? Prospect Park has one road, and it goes one way, and then it goes all the way around the park, right? So there is a quota with the NYPD. You have to write a book of summonses and at least 2 red lights. There is. That's all. How do you turn a guy out for 8 hours a shift and come back with no productivity?
Right.
So
Gotta do something.
it was a way to gauge it. And honestly, you know what? I could write a book of summons on somebody in one shot and be done. But I learned that I never wanted to hurt the guy in the pocketbook. Right. You don't want to hurt the working guy. Doesn't matter what class of people he was. You didn't want to hurt the working guy. But this one morning, I need my 2 red lights. It's coming towards the end of the month. I haven't written it, right? And we're sitting in the park, and this guy goes through 6 red lights in a row.
Oh my gosh.
We get to him, we pull him over, and he gives me attitude. He's in a sanitation workers. He's a sanitation cop, right?
There's sanitation cops?
Yeah, they enforce the ugly, dirty garbage in New York, right? That people are chronic with it.
Is that like kind
It's
of
bad.
like the wannabe cops? Like, how does that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that how you treat them?
That's stepping stone cop.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know what? It's a better job. You don't have to answer to the shit that I had to answer to, right? Right? You didn't have to go to the family disputes. You don't have to go to that stuff, right? So it was probably a better job. And the guy goes, "I'm on the job," right?
What?
Exactly. What? Right? I'm on the job. I'm like, oh, you have a job. You're not on my job.
Right.
And that was pretty hysterical. But, I didn't write him. City worker. I'm not gonna write you.
No.
My biggest thing was, and there are asshole cops everywhere. Like, everywhere. They'll write everybody and anybody. They don't give a shit, and they're going to write you, right? I would never, ever, ever in a million years ever write a doctor or a nurse. Never. Because you know what? As soon as I do, next week I'm going to be on their cat table.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's just bad karma.
That's exactly right.
Bad karma. You let it go, right? And then there's guys that, I used to tell people, you tell me a good joke, I'll let you go. Make me laugh, I'll let you go. Right? I pulled over a guy. Now, this isn't Flatbush. He was a black guy, really nice guy. If he had something in the car, God bless him. But I walked up to that car, he shit himself. I could smell the shit coming out the window. I could smell it. And he, officer, I'm sorry. I just shit myself. I said, I don't care if you got a fucking ton of kilo or whatever you're cracking there. Get out of here. I don't care.
I don't need to smell this.
Yeah. So, I'm not playing cleanup crew.
I'm not arresting him. I'm not putting him in cuffs. I'm not dealing with this shit.
Oh my
Literally,
gosh.
not dealing with it. Yeah, not dealing with this.
That is too funny.
Yeah.
Well, you were saying about cops, and I didn't get to address last week why I was actually dressed up a little bit, because I got popped on Route 12 in Pricetown in December. PSP was running a huge speeding thing. There was like 7 or 8 troopers in this one area. And the funny thing was I had my 5-year-old daughter in the car. I was taking her to a play date. I didn't think I was legitimately speeding. And there was a van in front of me. So it's not like I wasn't rocketing down the road. I go through this speed trap. I'm like, it's fine. It's whatever. Get pulled. What the fuck am I getting pulled over for? Comes over, I pulled you over. I'm like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of you. What are you guys doing? He's like, we're running speed. I'm like, all right. He's like, I got you doing 52 and a 40. And I'm like, I thought there was a 45. He's like, no, it's a 40. I'm like, well, again, my daughter's in the back. Like, I'm not doing anything here. Well, long story short, there were some issues with my car. And he's like, look, one of the nicest PSPs I've ever come across in my life. He's like, look, take care of this stuff. Plead not guilty to the summons that you get in the mail, and we'll talk. I said, okay. So just last week or last episode, whatever it was, I had just come from court and meeting the cop, and he was able to get the judge to drop 4 of the 5 charges down, and one was just vehicle related. Everything else was taken care of.
It's a game they play. It's a money. They want the money grab. They make sure you don't get any points on your license, so your insurance doesn't go up. But it's a money grab.
Yeah, no, it is. But he was cool because he's like, look, just fix the stuff that needs to be fixed, and I will make sure the rest of it goes away. So instead of $800 in fines, it was $200 in fines.
Still, you're a working class guy.
Right.
You know what? When I graduated the police academy and went to my training unit, the chief of the borough came and talked to all of us, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, you guys are anxious to get out on the road. He goes, I know. And he goes, you want to do all the police things that you want to do, chase bad guys, write summonses, but you're going to encounter some really bad people, some really shitheads. He goes, when it comes to writing summonses, you write those shitheads. You can make up your book and write them up. You get the working class guy that's decent, trying to make a living. Why do you want to hurt that guy? And plus, it hurts relations between the police department and Joe Citizen.
Right.
And those words stuck in my head. I'm 56 years old, retired 30 years. Stuck in my head. So why hurt the average guy?
Yeah.
It doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, right. And again, where some of this money might be allocated to is still kind of in question with certain areas, we'll say. Right. So you never even really know, okay, that $200 is, if it's going towards the school system, great. If it's going to the mayor's paycheck, I got a problem with it.
No, I did have one guy, pull him over for a summons, and we got into a friendly chat. It was really good. We were actually talking sports too. And then it came into, hey, do you know Officer so-and-so? Yeah, I know him. Why is he an asshole? Dude, where do you work? UPS.
Yeah.
You got assholes at UPS? He goes, yeah. 10% of every society is an asshole.
Right. It doesn't matter what your job is.
We all have assholes, and there are asshole cops. There's asshole firemen. There's asshole doctors.
Right, exactly.
So. That's a brilliant point that most people, have to realize is that it just so happens, that you're in a position of being a law enforcement officer. And for that regard, at least for me, I'm going to hold you to a higher standard.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when that person is kind of a douche, it makes the whole entity as a whole look bad.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
It's like you have 100,000 cops and you got 2 of them that are dickheads.
Yeah.
It makes everybody else it makes everybody else look bad, because at least how I view it is I hold cops, firefighters to a higher standard. You know what I mean? Because That's the oath you took. You know what I mean? And listen, yeah, there's bad eggs no matter what you do. But the unfortunate part about that job is, and you know it better than anybody, is you hold yourself to that high standard. And it's got to piss you off when there are bad eggs in the ranks that sort of
you know what though?
That you fight against.
I would bet that neither one of you, and I'm not looking to be insulting,
Yeah.
ever been to the ghetto and been there and watch a 12-year-old give birth.
Ew.
Oh,
No.
okay. No.
So now we're talking about family structure.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That there is none.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no male in the house. There's no lead authority. Now the 12-year-old's mother has now got to raise another baby.
Right.
And she shouldn't have to be tasked with that, but she is, right?
Yeah,
So-
baby raising a baby.
Right.
So
right.
that goes on in the ghetto.
Yeah.
The stuff that one of the other stories I can tell you right off the bat is my partner's off for the night, so they put me with a new guy. Right. New guy's fresh to the precinct, brand new, hasn't really been out on patrol much. Right. We're going up to a family dispute. Dude, whatever you do, do not lean on the wall. Okay. In one ear, out the other. He got complacent. As in the protocol, when you go into a family dispute, you separate the husband.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
One cops goes with the wife, one goes with the
Right.
husband.
Yeah.
Yep.
You get the story, and then you kind of like figure out the middle.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Because she's gonna lie, he's gonna lie. Right? He got complacent, took himself and leaned into the wall.
Yeah.
It looked like the mummy. The roaches came out of the wall like it was waterfall.
Oh my
Really?
God.
Dude, I told you, don't lean on the wall.
Oh my
The
God.
kicker to this is,
Yeah.
it's really funny though. The Chinese food restaurants in the ghetto
Oh Jesus.
all serve chicken wings and French fries.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of them,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Very
they-
Chinese.
Yeah. So they get these styrofoam box. It doesn't go in the refrigerator overnight. It sits out on the table, and you know damn well those cockroaches are on top of that shit,
Oh my God.
and you know they are eating that shit the next day.
Ugh.
All right, so their standards of living are just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking because they're black. I'm talking because they're poor.
Right. Right.
And they don't know any better, right? So it's that kind of thing, mentality that you go from. And
Yeah.
you know what? Cops are human too, though.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh,
So,
absolutely.
I got a wife, 3 kids. She's busting my balls. We ain't got enough money for the fucking mortgage. You know, I got to work a second job. I worked all day, and I'm trying to get some sleep at night.
Yeah.
So, they got their own problems. I'm
Yeah,
not making
absolutely.
excuses.
No,
for them,
no.
but
Absolutely.
they're human beings. Too,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So you could. My first sergeant taught me this, and I love it. His name was D.V. Keenan. Loved the guy. Smartest guy. Taught me the most in life, and he was the one that taught me that, if you're here on time, you're 10 minutes late.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing was you have to give everybody a chance. All right. So you're going to hear that. I heard Mark is a real dick. Right.
We've heard this.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Well, Mark's not a dick until he's a dick to me.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the way I always play it.
Yeah.
And that's why Sergeant Keenan taught me. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he did the caveat he threw on that was 9 out of 10 times he's a dick. So it's just a matter of when is he going to show it to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
But they were truly, listen, I look back now, I'm 56 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm doing patrol at 20, 21 years old, going to
Jesus
these family disputes of people that have been married for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to solve you. What the fuck do I
Yeah.
know?
Right.
It's like, do I
right.
look like a psychologist?
What do I know? And I laugh at it now, like, holy shit, was I stupid and naive or what?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Oh, is it true that those are generally the most dangerous situations to walk into?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? You just don't. You can go to 0 to 100 miles an hour in
Right.
attitude in that fast, and you don't know if she's coming out with a knife to stab you because
Right.
you're in the way.
Because I mean, I've read so many different stories and then different shows to watch it, and all these retired police officers will tell you exactly. He goes, domestic disputes are the worst to go into because you don't know.
Yeah.
If you show up to a shooting, well, what's
Involved.
right.
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Now we're on guard right out of the
right.
gate.
Yeah, exactly. But this, it may look like a situation that's nothing, but they can escalate
Yeah.
in 2 seconds.
And they
Right.
do. They do.
Do it.
They do.
We're at 54.
Okay.
So round 2.
Were you not what was the last thing I said to you before we started? Which was, hey, could you give me a check when we're at 40 minutes?
Mr. McDonald was speaking, and I was not going to interrupt our guest. So
Okay.
you can go pound sand,
Okay.
good sir.
I just thought I was going crazy.
No.
Maybe,
no.
I don't know. Maybe it's my bad hearing. I don't know.
Be a bunch of bad things.
I don't think we've even scratched.
Well, that's
Right.
that's why we want to. I've got to change the camera around a little bit, and we try and just for logistics and the way the algorithms work, try and keep it under an hour, so we can make episode 8 right after these messages.
You got it.
So,
And then while we're in break, I'm gonna look up what the word algorithm means. So
it's Berks County education at its finest, right there.
That's what I'm going to be doing during our break, and I think the next section of this podcast, I think I want to sort of change the topic and get to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And
Very good, my friend.
and the work and the work that you're doing in Berks County, and how it's benefiting people, and I think it's just a cool thing to talk about.
Yeah.
I think we can go from that point.
All right. We will be right back after these messages.
Can you do like a Chuck Woolery thing?
Which was I'm trying to think what he said.
He knows him. We'll be back in 2 and 2.
I remember that now, but God, I completely forgot about that. All right, deuces. We'll be right back, guys. Quick commercial break here.
Awesome.